Alright, David Harry here, and in this super long and super boring video, I'm going to be doing two things. Now the first thing is to compare the recording quality of the Atomos Ninja V compared to the Elgato 4K-X. Now the second thing I'm going to be doing here, by extension to the first thing I'll be doing, is to also prove to you that there is absolutely no difference between 8-bit and 10-bit when your destination is 8-bit and you don't do any type of kind of like destructive color stuff or grading in between the capture and the delivery to your 8-bit format or platform. Now, like I've said, this video is going to be very long. Now, it has to be because there's a whole bunch of things that I'm going to be explaining and demonstrating within this video, and quite a bit of that is going to be within the timeline of my editing software, which is DaVinci Resolve Studio on my Mac here. So like I say, I will be going very methodically through this entire process and showing you exactly what goes on. So I'm not just going to like leave it down to like, you know, hearsay on what's happening here. I'm going to actually show you, like, you know, in full laborious detail what exactly is going on. So as I've already said, this video is basically going to show us the results of recording the exact same video signal in two different ways. So obviously the first way is in 10-bit 422 with the Ninja here. I'll probably just call this the Ninja and I'll call the Elgato, we know what I'm talking about. And then the second thing that I'm going to be recording is an 8-bit 420 signal, which is going to be with the Elgato. Now, just a couple of quick things on this point before I go any further, because unfortunately the Elgato recordings are not what you would call ideal. And by that, what I mean is there is actually a problem with all these Elgato 4K-X's and every single Apple Silicon M1 Mac. So the problem is that the Mac will only identify the 4K-X as a 5 gigabits per second device and not a 10 gigabits per second device. I will be doing a more in-depth video about that shortly. But the byproduct of it not being able to see this device as a 10 gigabits per second device just means that basically this now just gets seen as a standard 5 gigabits per second UVC device, as opposed to a 10 gigabits per second UVC device, which basically means that the maximum that we can record, or the maximum resolution and frame rate that we can record at the moment with this 4K-X on M1 Max, is 30 frames per second at 4K. So in this video, I will actually be recording twice the temporal resolution with the Ninja compared to the Elgato. However, when I do my pixel peeping part of the video, I will be going for still frames and stuff. Now at that point we will be looking at the exact same frame, so the temporal differences won't come into it at that point. And that's really the kind of like takeaway from this video, is when we do go pixel peeping, that we don't see any difference between the recordings. So just on that point of the recordings and why we won't see any difference, let me just cover what's going on briefly there. So the Ninja is doing ProRes 422 HQ. Well, what I'm also doing with the Elgato is to record that to ProRes 422 HQ as well with inside the Mac. Now, whilst the actual video transport stream from the Elgato to the Mac is only 8-bit 420, because that's going to be NV12, and I'm only using NV12 because I can only get 5 gigabits per second on the current setup. So obviously that means I'm limited to 8-bit 420 chroma subsampling. Now, when I use ProRes 422 HQ for the recording for the Elgato, we of course do not suddenly increase the video to 10-bit and 422 chroma subsampling. What we're doing is basically padding out the 8-bit 420 signal into ProRes 422 HQ. Now you might be sitting here thinking, well, what's the point of that if we are not going to get the extra benefit from like the higher bit depth and the lesser amount of chroma subsampling? Well, here's the thing. In these instances, the most important thing is going to be the type of encoding that we do as in intra-frame compared to interframe, and also the lack of compression, as in using something with a low compression ratio like ProRes. So in this instance, although the video signal that I'm recording coming from the Elgato is still 8-bit 420, and it's just encapsulated in a 10-bit 422 codec, which is ProRes 422 HQ, we actually get the benefit of a much better bitrate and also the intra-frame recording as well. Now in that instance, we are basically at the exact same specification as what the Ninja is, minus obviously the bit depth and the chroma subsampling difference. However, when we go to an 8-bit platform, anything that's 10-bit gets truncated to 8-bit, and anything that's 422 will get truncated to 420. So for standard dynamic range recordings on YouTube, it is all 8-bit 420. So at that point, the net result is this. The Ninja ends up looking like it was recorded at 8-bit 420, and the Elgato looks exactly the same as it was recording at as far as its bit depth and chroma subsampling are concerned. Now what you will definitely see during the course of this testing is that once it does go to 8-bit 420, because don't forget, you're watching this on YouTube, so it's all 8-bit 420. At that point, you will see zero difference in the actual video quality between the Elgato and the Ninja. Now, I will try and do some chapters for this video. However, I don't really know how kind of meaningful they're going to be, because this video is realistically just me meandering my way through DaVinci Resolve Studio here on my Mac and basically explaining what comes up and stuff. But the bottom line that I'm going to show here is going to be the way that the test was set up, so how it's all configured in the timeline for Resolve. Then I will do some kind of like full screen playback elements. Then I will go into doing some pure pixel peeping right down to very stupidly small magnification levels and stuff. And then I will also show some differences between when we record the Elgato to a good codec like ProRes 422, or basically a codec which uses intra-frame coding and also minimal compression as well, compared to using H.265, which is something that I done on the iPad Pro M2. So that part of the video is actually quite interesting, because we clearly do see a difference when we switch over to what is realistically a more inferior codec. And there will also be a video about that particular test as well using the iPad Pro M2, because although it is an inferior codec at the end of the day, the actual results are still really stunning. And also ironically, on the iPad Pro M2, the Elgato works at 4K 60, so that's a bit of a weird one. Okay, so I'm now basically done with this introduction, and there was one thing that I forgot to say during this video as it was getting towards the end, and that is, right at the end there are two sections where I go full screen with a different way of rendering the video for the output to YouTube. Now that's going to be the full screen stuff where it's kind of like normal kind of gameplay type thing, and then my kind of zoomed in stuff as well for going pixel peeping. So there are those two sections at the end that I forget to mention. Also, those two sections are going to be available to download as well. So there will be a link in the video description below where you can download those same files. Now, as far as those two downloadable test files are concerned, they're going to be quite big. And the reason why is because they are at 4K 60 frames per second, and also I've encoded them at 100 megabits per second. Now, they are still only 8-bit 420, but the reason for using such a high bit rate and what have you is just so that we can try and maintain enough of the quality within those encodings so that you can get like a really good interpretation of what they look like once they go to 8-bit. And the reason why they are 8-bit is because, once again, they end up as 8-bit anyways when they get to YouTube. Anyways, that will be enough for the introduction, so I'm going to now get into the testing. Okay, so I'm in DaVinci Resolve Studio now. So what I'm going to do is just explain what's in the timeline, and I'll just go over some of the stuff to do with Resolve itself and its settings and what have you. And then from there, I'll start kind of going through the footage. I'll play some of the footage through as is, and then I'll start doing some zooming in so we can do some like proper pixel peeping and stuff. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is to just switch off all the video tracks here, and then I'll kind of go down one at a time and show you what's going on. So this first track at the top has just got a white dividing line in it. So if I just switch that on, and if I go full screen, as we can see, there's a thin white line. That's just to help us identify where the split is between the Elgato footage and also the Ninja footage. Now, it's obviously really important at this point as well to point out that you really should be watching this video back on a fairly large screen, and also in 4K wherever possible. If you're watching this video in like 1080 on a small screen, it's likely that you're just not going to see, like, you know, all the detail that's actually in the video, and also you're probably likely to miss this white line and stuff. Okay, so let me just come out of that a second. Oh yeah, one other thing as well here. This is all completely unscripted. I'm just doing this like in one take, so I'm bound to fluff certain things here, or I might get a couple of things wrong that I don't realize as I'm talking, maybe if I talk about standards and stuff like that. So I might have to do some like hard edits if I catch myself saying something weird and then go back and redo it and stuff, because like I say, it's all one take and it's all kind of off the top of my head. It's not scripted, so you'll just have to bear with me on that one. However, you know, what I do here will definitely show you exactly everything that I need to point out here. Okay, so now moving down to the next track. Now if I switch this on the left hand side here, this is actually the footage from the Elgato. So anytime I do anything in the timeline or play anything back, everything on the left is always the Elgato. Now if I just come up to the inspector here as well, as we can see, it's saying that the Elgato is Apple ProRes 422HQ, 29.97 frames per second. I will get onto the temporal differences shortly, and I will also show you what that means in the timeline as well. Okay, so that's the Elgato footage there. Now if I scroll down and switch on the bottom track here, that's now the right side, and then that is the Ninja. Oh yeah, I'm just likely to refer to these things as Elgato and Ninja. We know exactly what's going on here. And if I select the Ninja footage here, as we can see in the inspector, it's identical as far as the codec is concerned, so Apple ProRes 422HQ. However, temporally, this has got twice the resolution because this is 59.94. Again, I will show you that shortly. So if I just flip between the two tracks here, as we can see, they're both the same Apple ProRes. It's just the temporal differences, one being 29.97 and the other one being 59.94. Okay, now as far as all that's concerned, I think that will kind of point out exactly what's going on in the timeline. Now as far as the project is concerned, let me just show you some stuff here. So there's no kind of like optimized media going on. There's no proxies, timeline resolutions are 100%, there's no render caching going on, and anything to do with fusion doesn't come into play. There's no fusion elements going on here. Now, there are other things within inside Resolve which you can alter or change, which will alter certain things to do with like quality and stuff. However, everything is just set to the best possible playback quality here. And don't forget, even if there were certain elements here which were not actually, like say, full resolution or something, that would actually be applying to both of the clips. So it's not like either one of the clips can be favored by anything to do with Resolve here. And most certainly because we're using the exact same codec, the decoding of the clips is going to be identical as well. I mean, as a for instance, if I come up to playback here, and if I went to the timeline proxy resolution, in fact, before I do that, let me just go full screen and show you this. So that's full like quality 4K. Now, if you have just like a quick look at the text on the screen, you know, we can see how sharp that all looks. Now, if I come up here and go to, say, the timeline playback resolution, if I drop that to 1/4 and then go back to full screen, as we can see, this has now got blurrier. So the point that I'm making here is that if there was anything going on within the system which was going to degrade anything, it would do it equally to both sides of the image here, because obviously it's a global thing. However, there is no weirdness going on. It's all kind of like full resolution and like, you know, full quality for playback and what have you. So I think so far here I've probably shown you everything I need to. In fact, actually, let me just go to the timeline here. So I'll just go to the timeline settings, and as you can see, this is 59.94 frames per second. So this is timing in with what the Ninja's recorded, and obviously we're in 4K UHD here. Okay, now if I just go a little bit bigger with this. In fact, what I'll do, I'll find somewhere where I can definitely show you the temporal differences here. I'll go full screen and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Maybe what is, I'm trying to find somewhere where there's definitely like, you know, horizontal lines. In fact, these steps here will probably do it. So if I go full screen, if we have a look down here at these steps, if we can look at that as like one frame, which it is, because what it is, at this point in the timeline, the Elgato and the Ninja are synchronized together. However, if I do a frame advance on my keyboard now, we're going to see this horizontal line kind of like go split. So watch this. There we go. So there's a split horizontal line there. Now the reason why that's happening is because every time I do a frame advance, I'm going to change a frame every single time with the Ninja, but the Elgato is going to have to take 2 presses on the timeline in order for it to show, like, you know, its next frame. Again, because it is half of the temporal resolution, as in it is half of the frame rate. So if I hit advance again on my keyboard, that horizontal line will go back to a horizontal line. There we go. Then if I hit it again, it'll go to a split line. And then if I hit it again, it'll go back to, like, you know, all being like, you know, properly in line. Okay, there we go. So that's just to show you that as I, like, you know, do any kind of stepping through, we are on twice the like resolution for the frame rate as far as the Ninja's concerned. However, when I start doing some critical like pixel peeping and we start zooming in, I will make sure that we use the part of the, like, you know, the timeline where both of the actual recordings are synchronized together. Now on this point as well, again, I've probably already mentioned this. Now this isn't ideal using, like, you know, we'll call it shorthand 60 versus 30. It's not ideal. However, it's not going to like make any difference when we do the pixel peeping, when we've got the paused frames and stuff. That's where we're going to see absolutely no difference whatsoever. Okay, so if I just kind of give you a quick example here, I'm just going to scroll backwards. And as you can see, for every tap on the keyboard that I do, the right hand side, which is the Ninja, is advancing or going backwards exactly by a frame. And then the left hand side, which is the Elgato, is taking 2 taps of the keyboard in order to do a frame advance or a frame reverse or whatever you want to call it. Now also, as I do some of this, there might be certain points as well where, for instance, I might hit the keyboard twice and the frames don't move. Well, that's got nothing to do with the actual like recordings themselves, and it's got nothing to do with the timeline or resolve. What that might just be is that during the gameplay, it may not have been a consistent 59.94. Every now and then you're going to get, like, you know, repeated frames, and that's just strictly where the GPU's being overloaded and you can't actually maintain 59.94. But for the best part, it's definitely going to show, like, you know, that kind of like frame advancing that I've just shown you there. Okay, let me come out of that. Right, I think right now I have probably explained, like, for the best part, all the little niggly bits that we need to be aware of here. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all then is I will just play some little random sections in the timeline, and I will go full screen, and we're going to see, other than the fact that, you know, you might see some differences on one side to do with the temporal resolution when there's any kind of, like, you know, fast movement, the picture is going to look identical. There is zero difference in the actual quality. So I'll just run from here. Actually, I'll just go full screen here. I'll just play a bit of this.
Gas is moving.
Okay, so that's like really fast movement there. So it's going to be more difficult to notice stuff when it's fast movement. Let me see if I can find something that's slower movement. Hold on. Well, that's definitely slower because it's a paused frame. Right, hold on a minute. Do I go slow here? Well, this is slowish as I come down, so we'll have a look at this. Actually, at this point, I remember now, I deliberately did a very slow movement here. So what I'll do, I'll play this for a few more seconds at this point, because this is going to show us like a proper slow movement. And when things are moving slowly, we will be able to see things like resolution and differences a lot easier, or lack of differences. So let me just play from here.
You got reinforcements inbound.
Okay, so for the best part there, that was kind of quite steady, and because it was like slow, we would have not noticed really any differences. Now, obviously, the thing that's, you know, not ideal here is obviously one thing's at like, you know, 59.94, the other one's like, you know, 39.97 or 29.97. And the problem with that is when you get fast movements, when you kind of like at a half frame rate, for instance, a fast movement can almost look like it's blurry, and that's just like physical perception of it. It doesn't actually mean that it's blurry. It's just that when something's refreshing twice as fast, it will look sharper. But as we could see there, because the motion was slow, we could definitely see, you know, that they were basically identical on both sides. Now, if you got things like anything that cuts like 45 degrees and stuff, or there might be like certain horizontal or even vertical lines that you might pass through, that's when you go double frame rate, it's going to look clearer, and that's only because you're seeing it like twice as many times in any given frame of time and stuff. Anywho, I think I'll just do one more example of like full screen here, and then we'll get into some proper pixel peeping. So if I just come to here, no, not there, let's see, yeah, I'll do this bit here, hold on.
Hostile Guardian has been deployed.
Okay, so as we could clearly see there, because of the movement being like, you know, quite slow and stuff, there really wasn't that much difference temporally on either side of that split there, which basically means that we were seeing nearly enough the exact same thing there. Now, what it is, I'm actually recording my microphone into one of my video cameras here, because one of my video cameras just happens to have a really good preamp on it, but the battery's running low, so give me a moment. I'm just gonna have to switch this battery over and stuff. I'll come straight back, and then we'll get into some pure pixel peeping. Okay, so I've just switched my battery over, and also because I talk too much, I've had to swap the SD card as well so I can carry on recording my microphone into my camera. Right, so what I'm going to do now is get into this pixel peeping stuff. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is just to make a compound clip here from whatever it is that we've got on this section of the timeline. So if you just give me a moment. Now, the reason why I'm making a compound clip here is because it's going to allow me to like zoom in and stuff like that into like both sides really easily. So let me just reframe this a bit better. Okay, so if we just have a quick look here, we've got the exact same thing going on. So it's the Elgato on the left and the Ninja on the right with the little white line split screen there. Now, what I'm going to do is pick on certain elements of the timeline and do very unreasonable amounts of zooming in. And what we're going to see is that whilst the picture will degrade because we're going to go insanely like zoomed in, the picture will degrade equally on both sides of the image here. And the reason why is because there is absolutely zero difference between them, even though one is 8-bit and one is 10-bit. Now there is also the point of like the chroma subsampling here. We've got 422 versus 420. However, for this type of thing, chroma subsampling doesn't really come into it and doesn't have any effect. Now, of course, as I've already mentioned from the outset, if this was something where we were going to be going like, you know, degrading the picture, as in like, you know, doing things like, you know, grading and stuff like that, then yes, of course, obviously, you know, going to the highest bit depth and the least amount of chroma subsampling is definitely going to be better for stuff like that. But what we're doing here is essentially recording something and uploading it to an 8-bit platform. So this is the reason why we don't see any differences. Anywho, so what I'm going to do is just find some, in fact, you know what, I'll just go straight in on what we've got here. So what I'm going to do is just insanely zoom in here. And when I say insanely, I mean, look at that. That's the area of the screen that we're going to look at in relation to the overall frame size there. Now, that's just mental. I mean, this is not practical in any way whatsoever, but it'll give us a very clear idea of something here. So if I just go full screen, as we can see there, on both sides of that line, that picture is exactly the same as far as the quality is concerned. Now, if we have a look on the outline of this building up here, and we can see all kinds of weirdness on the outside of it and stuff, a lot of this is going to be to do with the initial rendering within the game, but a lot of it is also going to be doing with, like, you know, upscaling and things like aliasing and stuff like that that's occurring. But nonetheless, all this mess and mush that we see on this side of the frame, we see it on this side of the frame as well. So as you can see, both sides of the frame are being degraded by the same amount. And of course, like I've already said, this is an insane amount of zooming into the picture. Now, what I'm going to do is just play this a little bit. The only thing is, when we're kind of zoomed in so heavily, it's not going to look too good, especially with fast movement. But let's just see what goes on here. Okay, as we can clearly see there, both sides of that frame look exactly the same as far as, like, you know, the amount of degradation that's being applied to the frame. So both sides of the frame obviously must be the same quality at this point. Now, I have to say at this point, although I'm looking back on a 10-bit panel and stuff, you know, there's very little difference to be had here anyways. And the main reason for that is because a lot of these colors and like a lot of the textures have got that much kind of like grain in them and stuff, that things like what people call dynamic range, which is where, like, you know, most people associate where they get banding across color lines and stuff like that, or colors. We're not going to see that because the picture is almost self-dithering to a certain degree. And by that, what I mean is, although we're not applying dithering, the picture itself has got that much kind of like crud in the picture already, like, you know, fine mess and stuff like that. It almost self-dithers. So even viewing it back in 10-bit, there really isn't anything to see as a difference. Now, of course, you on YouTube, you're watching back in 8-bit at 420, and that's going to have degraded, you know, as well, because there's going to be compression to do with the codec used on YouTube and stuff like that. So these things become even like more invisible again, because YouTube is basically leveling this stuff out. But like I say, even at this end here, I'm seeing like I say virtually, there is no difference whatsoever on both sides of that split there. Now I'll just carry on playing a little bit of this here, and we'll kind of go through and look at some other stuff as well, because we'll concentrate on some text and a few other things as well. Oh, also, what I will do, once I've done this example here, I will show you an example where the Elgato has been recorded with H.265, and we can clearly see a difference there, and that's because the codec itself isn't good enough to maintain the quality. So I can definitely show you something where it definitely degrades, but for now, like I say, I'll just give you a few more examples here where we definitely won't see any degradation either side of that line there. Now let me just pause this. Now I appreciate that for the best part this is a bit of a mess because it's zoomed right in and obviously the whole thing's degrading. But like I keep saying, it's going to degrade by the exact same amount, and a lesser or a more inferior codec such as H.265 will show degradation, and I will show it shortly. But if I just kind of go, you know, frame advancing through here, when we hit the point where the two sides of the frame match up like they do now, we're not seeing any differences at all there. Look, see, there's no difference whatsoever. Now let me just come back out here, and what I will do, let me just come back to the full size here. Let's try and find another part of the frame. In fact, something where there's some nice clear text and stuff going on. There's clear text at the top of the frame there. However, there's some kind of countdown stuff that goes on. Oh, there we go. There's some countdown stuff going on. Right, so what I'm going to do here is zoom in insanely into this part here. So just give us a sec. I'm just going to have to try and reorientate this frame. As we can see, once again, completely, you know, unreasonable amounts of zooming going on there. That's just a stupid tiny part of the picture. Anyway, let's have a quick look at this. Okay, as we can clearly see there, even with text, which is normally something where people might say this is where chroma subsampling will actually come into effect. And yes, it kind of does, but it only does that within certain instances. But because this stuff has already been hard baked into the actual recordings and stuff, once again, we're not really going to see any difference here, even with things like overlaid text that was in the game. So as you can see here quite clearly, on both sides of that split, there is no difference. As a for instance, if we have a look at this word at the top and stuff where it says respawn in, if you look on this side here, whatever, like, you know, crap we can see around the edges of that text there, which was recorded 8-bit, is the same as, like, you know, the crap around the edges of the text here on the right hand side, which was 10-bit. Then also, if we come down here, if we have a look at this circle, for instance, as we can see where the circle starts kind of like being cut by 45 degrees and stuff, which is where we're bound to see a little bit more of, like, you know, the artifacts to do with the likes of aliasing and stuff like that. What we're going to notice is we've got the same thing on both sides. Now, there are certain instances actually where it may even appear that the Elgato side may even look better. That's actually just a bit of an optical illusion as I go through these things, and the reason why is because there might just be a slightly different shade of something that we're looking at. And of course, if we've got, like, say, high contrast somewhere, that'll actually give it the perception of, say, better resolution, when in fact it's not, because as we can clearly see here, the whole thing is equally as messed and stuff. And obviously, you know, this stuff that's inside the circle here, same thing, that's a bit of a mess. Now the thing is, it's obviously not going to look the same to you on YouTube, even in 4K, as what it's looking to me right now because of the extra compression that's going on YouTube. But even after all that leveling on YouTube, you're still going to see that there's no real difference. We'll say no real difference, no difference whatsoever. Now let me come out of here, I'll just reset that, and let's just try and find something else. I mean, see, at this point, I've already proven the point that I'm making here. But let's just see if there's something else. Hold on. Yeah, we'll just randomly zoom into this bit here. And again, we'll just go stupid. In fact, let's go really stupid. I mean, look at that. That's just mental. So let's just get into there. As we can see, that whole thing is just equally as messed up on both sides of that line there. And even if we start looking at some of these, like, you know, lines that cut across, you know, you're gonna see the same types of artifacts on the lines and stuff. And don't forget, you know, this is just an insane amount of zooming in. In fact, we can even see the same type of thing where the white line is on either side, because obviously there's going to be like render issues around that white line. So as we can clearly see there, they're identical on either side of that white line as well. But look how much that was zoomed in by. In fact, let's do something a little less unreasonable. I mean, that is unreasonable still, but less unreasonable than where it was. So let's just go into there. Now at least we can start seeing, what's in the frame properly here. And of course, we can't really see. Well, I keep saying we can't really see. We just can't see any differences with these things. Now let me just play this. Hopefully it's a bit slow. Oh yeah, there we go. We're getting into the water. Look at that. Again, no differences on either side of the lines. Now, if we have a look at the top of the frame here, again, whatever weirdness we've got going on within the render is occurring on both sides of that line. Let me just see if there's anywhere slow here. Yeah, that brick wall there, for instance, again, there's stuff like, that's just identical. I mean, you might look at this part here and go, well, that actually looks clearer than the other side. But once again, that's brighter on that side within the brickwork, and that would be the only reason why there might be a perception that it looks better. However, if I come further out again and then go back in, look, there is just no differences whatsoever with these things. Okay, well, I think maybe I've probably done enough examples here just to show you that when you do go pixel peeping, there really just isn't anything in there to be observed of any difference whatsoever. So what I'm going to do now is show you something where there is a difference, and the difference is going to be because of the type of codec and not because it's 8-bit and not because of the chroma subsampling. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you some stuff on this project here. Now this is actually for another video that I'll be doing, which is basically the same type of video as what this one is, but this other video, what this project is for here, is to compare the Elgato to the Ninja, but the Elgato being used on iPad Pro M2, and in that instance it's going to be using H.265 as the codec for the recording. Now what this will clearly show us is that when we use an inferior codec, then yes, we will start seeing differences. So the differences that I'm going to show you here are strictly to do with the differences which are like compounded problems when using interframe compared to intraframe, and also the bit rate as well. So just quickly, the Elgato clip here, as we can see, is H.265. Now it says main level 5.1. It's basically an 8-bit capture. And then there's the Ninja clip there. Once again, that's Apple ProRes 422HQ. Everything here is exactly the same. It's the same kind of like split screen setup and stuff. Now, I'm just going to quickly show you some stuff here. I'll just play through some things quickly in full screen, and we will see it is very impressive still, because it on first glance, it's going to look like both sides are the same. Okay, so that's probably enough there just to show you that on first glance they look the same. Now, ironically here, what happens when you plug the Elgato into the iPad Pro M2? It does record 5994, so there's a huge difference there between the iPad and the MacBook. Anywho, what I'll do here, I will just do a compound clip of this. So let me just cut and paste this here, and then let me just make a new clip there. Hold on, actually, have I done the right thing? Yes, I have. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go in to do some zoomed in pixel peeping here. And what we will notice is that we can definitely see differences on either side of the line. So maybe even there we'll see some stuff. Yeah, straight away, I mean, I can definitely see this, although the YouTube compression may hide it a bit. But see here, that's all mushy on this side, and then on this side here it's not mushy, and so obviously this is the Elgato on this side, this is the Ninja on this side, and even on the line there, just on this side of the line, we can see some kind of crud going on there. Now let me just play a bit there.
Down to you, soldier.
Okay, let me pause that. Now what we're going to see here is that this side does look a bit sharper than this side here as well at that point. Now let me just come out of there. I'll find somewhere else on the timeline here. If you just give us a moment. Okay, let me just find somewhere else to zoom into. In fact, if we go in onto like some fine line details and stuff somewhere else and maybe some text, we should be able to see some things. Let's see, this text here might show us some stuff, so let me just zoom right in here. Again, I'm sorry for the random nature of this. It's all done in one take and what have you. Okay, so I've zoomed in there. And again, the YouTube compression might be leveling this out for you. However, I can see here that this part of this emblem or logo is all mushy on this side, whereas on this side, it's really clean. Also on the edges here around like these curves, it's more mushy on this side, which is the Elgato side. And then on this side here, which is the Ninja side, it's clearer. Now let me just come out of there. I'll see if there's like one more thing that I can possibly find. In fact, I'll tell you where this will start really kind of like showing itself up, and that's in very fast movement. So let me find somewhere with fast movement and then I'll zoom in on that. Hold on, let's see. Is this fast enough? That might not be fast enough movement, but we'll definitely find out. So if I zoom right in on these stairs here, because what it is, when we do fast movement, the bitrate comes into play there as well, obviously, as like whether it's inter or intra-frame encoding. There we go, straight away. So this side here looks all soft, and then this side here looks all sharp. Now, the thing there, that is not the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit. At this point, what we're seeing here is the fact that the H.265 codec, which is used to record this side of the frame, the Elgato side, this is basically an interframe codec being compared to an intra-frame codec, or basically an iframe only codec, which is what the ProRes codec is, compared to like an IPB frame codec, which is what H.265 is in this particular instance. But on top of that, we've also got a massive compression going on as far as the data rate is concerned as well. So the bit rate on this side of the picture for the Elgato is way lower than what it is on this side. In fact, it's by a factor of 34. So the file which I recorded for this side of the picture here, which is the Ninja, is 35 times bigger than the file for this side here. So just this little bit here definitely shows us that the two things that make the huge difference when comparing these types of sources are the codec and whether it is inter or intra-frame, and also the bit rate. Now, I don't know if it's worth playing through this. Yeah, it's too fast to play through. We're not going to see the differences when it's playing too fast. However, when I paused on the frame where there was fast movement, which would have meant that the bit rate was being really pushed on it, we could definitely see a huge difference there. Let me just get shut of that. Okay, so I think then this video is probably coming to an end, and for anybody who's stuck right the way through this, hopefully you have seen now what the major differences are when you're recording stuff. Now, this is obviously gameplay because I'm kind of like, edging this towards gameplay because of the Elgato capture box. However, this could just have easily have been like a video camera plugged into the Elgato capture box as well. So what we definitely should have understood here is that there is no difference between 8-bit and 10-bit when the final destination is going to be 8-bit, and of course we don't do any kind of picture adjustments to the source material. So as long as the same source is being recorded 8-bit and 10-bit and then gets delivered to 8-bit, such as YouTube, zero difference. And then what I've shown you here with this quick example at the end is that it's down to the actual, the characteristics of the codecs, which are going to make the huge difference when we do see the differences, as in the comparison of interframe versus intra-frame, and also the associated bit rates for the encoding as well. Okay, so that's definitely me all talked out. And thank you very much if anybody got this far into the video, and hopefully it has maybe given you some ideas of things which may be useful to you, no matter what you're doing with video post-production. Now, this particular video that I've just been showing here, there will be a dedicated video just for that one. It won't be as long as this one because there's less to actually show in this one, because this one actually proves its point quite quickly. However, there will be other stuff coming up to do with this Elgato interface, because hands down, I just absolutely love this interface. It's absolutely amazing. Now, there's also some stuff to do with the Mac side of things as well. I'm just waiting on a response to an email from Elgato before I do a definitive video about M1 Max with the 4KX interface. Yeah, so basically, if you're into this type of stuff, I do these things in amongst my usual, like, you know, reviews and tests and stuff like that. So definitely keep an eye on the channel, or maybe even consider subscribing to my channel, and then just, you know, just basically watch the videos that pop up that might be of interest to you. I do a lot of, like, you know, just normal mundane stuff, like, you know, phone cases and stuff like that. Now, that's obviously for a different type of person than somebody who wants to watch a video like this, but the thing is, I've learned that I can't split my channel up into sub channels. It just doesn't work for me. So basically, I just throw a ton of stuff on my channel, and I just leave it down to the individual to work out whether they want to watch a video or not. So like I say, more stuff like this coming up, and you can dig through some of my older stuff to do with, like, the Mac and also Resolve and things like that. Anyways, if you found this video useful or insightful in any way, please do give it a thumbs up. A sub to the channel would be absolutely awesome. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.
Resurgence. Survive and your team can redeploy. Eliminate targets to bring them back faster. Moving here. Rogue signal broadcast detected. Encrypted signal confirmed. Decrypt the enemy signal by leading an enemy kills. Well done. Enemies dropping into the AO. You got reinforcements inbound. It's all on you. Stay alive so your squad can redeploy. Squad mates redeploying. Well done. Resurgence is about to end.
One down.
Make it count. Drop it into the area. Watch the skies.
Hostiles deploy the Mosquito.
You got gas moving in.
Moving here.
You're the last one standing, soldier. Survive until your squad can redeploy. 25 25 left. Keep up the good work. They hit us hard that time. Resurgence. Survive and your team can redeploy. Eliminate targets to bring them back faster.
Moving here.
Rogue signal broadcast detected. Encrypted signal confirmed. Decrypt the enemy signal by leading an enemy kills. Well done. Enemies dropping into the AO. You got reinforcements inbound. It's all on you. Stay alive so your squad can redeploy. Your squad mates redeploying. Well done. Resurgence is about to end.
One down.
Make it count. Drop it into the area. Watch the skies.
Hostiles deploy the Mosquito.
You got gas moving in.
Moving here.
You're the last one standing, soldier. Survive until your squad can redeploy. 25 left. Keep up the good work. They hit us hard that time.